So on today's episode of Taking Back My Power, I've got my friend Leonie, and I'm going to be asking her about a scenario where she felt like her power was taken away. I'm also going to be asking her how she felt when her power was taken away from her, what she learned about the situation, if she could do things differently, what would she do? And if there's any advice she can give to the viewers, what would it be? So thank you, Leonie, for joining me.
No problem.
So can you give the listeners and me a scenario when you felt your power was taken away from you?
Sure. So I would say growing up with my dad, the relationship between me and my dad kind of robbed me of my power in the sense that I would always try to please him and do what he said was the right thing. But over the years, I've learned, I don't know if it's just age or like I'm in my 30s, but I don't feel like I have that same relationship with my dad. And he's not able to control my life decisions, etc., etc. So that would be the scenario that I've realised I've taken back my power on in the last, say, 5 years or so.
So, like, growing up, what kind of things did you feel like your dad always used to say to you that you needed to do or that you needed to add? And you were like, no, like,
So my dad, in terms of my things he said to me that I had to do, he very much wanted me to study medicine. And at the time I went along with the idea, but now I'm so grateful for the fact that I didn't study medicine just because it would have been a really stressful career. And he was always pressuring me to study, which is a good thing, but you have to find balance as well. And I got to the point where I was always studying and never had a balance, like work-life balance, which is so important to me now. When I finish work, that's it. I cut off from work and then I go about my life as well. So he never really taught me and my sisters that. He was all about study, 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 study. Obey me, obey me, obey me, obey me. And yeah, there was nothing else. He was very much a dictator, but not really emotionally present.
So more like you have to live up to this standard, or you have to like marry an African guy, or you have to,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're going through because I'm going through the same thing with my father. So like, if you could go back when you were growing up, what would you tell your dad?
Yes, it's difficult because in the time past where I've tried to not confront him, but be honest with him, he's very much like, oh, you're disrespected. That would be his default answer. I remember I tried to write a letter, an email to him, just honest about what I was feeling, etc. And he said, in a reply to the email, goodbye, good luck, you've disrespected me by sending this email. So going back, if I was to address it differently, what would I have done? It feels like there's almost nothing I could have done differently. Like, my sister's been very vocal with him. And
so in terms of, because you've got a couple of sisters, and you just said one of your sisters has been very vocal with him. So how did he respond to your sisters?
Funnily enough, they've probably got the best relationship now, like my sister and him. So throughout the years, she's been very vocal with him. And I think he's learned to accept that, like learned that she would speak her mind and say what she thinks. So learning from her, perhaps I could have been more vocal, and it's something I could still do. Like but I don't speak to him as often as I used to. But when I do speak to him and he says something that's not right, being more vocal, and he just has to kind of get used to it. Still be respectful, still honor your father and mother, but I'm a person too, and I have my own opinions, and it's not just his opinion that's the right way.
I mean, again, because we come from similar background. You're Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian. But like, have you tried talking to like your mom or outside members of the family and seeing if they can kind of get through to him, or wouldn't that work?
I tried speaking to my aunt, and she's very much She has a similar sort of father in the sense that it's his way or the highway. He's the head of the household. You have to respect him, etc. So I tried speaking to her, and she tried to help resolve the situation, and she's recognized that the relationship wasn't good. But over the years, I feel like we've come to accept that we're never going to be, well, maybe, but it doesn't look like currently that we're ever going to be pally, really close, father and daughter. But that's okay. Like, I still love him. He still loves me. But there's a sense in my heart where I've accepted his faults. I have faults too, so no one's perfect. And I can accept him in the way that he is. So I haven't tried, like I used to get on well with my stepmom. I don't get on very well with her in recent years. We don't speak. So I haven't gone to her to try and resolve things. Sometimes I think she's put in as much of the dark as I am, in terms of, like, she doesn't know what's going on between me and my dad. I don't know what's going on between her and my dad, if you get my meaning.
Yeah. And your biological mother, is she still alive? Or?
No, my mum died when I was 8.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I was gonna say, if she's alive, then yeah. So I guess, like, so you don't think there's any way of you and your dad, like, reconciling, or?
I guess I need to have more faith that perhaps one day we can be closer, but it's difficult. Like, to try and forget past experiences, it's very difficult to see a very different future from the past. But what the state I am in now is, like, I've taken back my power, as the podcast is called. Like, I don't let it upset me anymore. And if that day comes where we've got a good father and daughter relationship, great, praise God for it. But at the moment, I've just got to be content in what I do have, I think, just so it doesn't affect me, my mental health, it doesn't affect me emotionally, etc.
So for anyone that is going through something similar to what both me and you are going through, what would you say?
I would say recognize what your father is like and try and communicate with him in a way that works for him in the initial sense. Like, I tried to communicate through speaking. My sister's done a lot of speaking. I tried the email, that didn't work. So
have you tried is it an intervention?
An intervention. So, like, one of his friends actually did offer and to be like the middleman, and like have a sit down with me, my dad, and his friend. But I said no to that because his friend is going to be on my dad's side. So unless we had someone who's totally neutral, like mediating, I don't see how. But I'm trying not to close off all possibilities, because if you don't try, you don't get, you know? But I don't see how I could have a sit down with him and just tell him everything that he's done that's disappointed me in the past. But I think that is possibly a good solution for some people, and I wouldn't rule out trying that if you think that could work in your family.
Also in my family, I think, I've tried saying that with my dad, my brother has, my mama has, and he's just stubborn. So once again, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think I'm just learning that is my life and I need to do what makes me happy, and as long as I'm not hurting anyone physically in the process, then, and I guess I'm kind of like a bit like you, because obviously I come from a very Christian African background, and my mum is very religious, and it says in the Bible, honor your father and mother, but at the same time, like, how much, to what extent do you honor them without kind of damaging your own happiness, if that makes sense? So I think I'm at that stage where I love him, but I kind of love him from a distance.
Yeah. I'm very much at that stage as well. Like, looking from a distance, have that arm's length between you until he shows that he's ready to change. And my dad's 72, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think my dad and your dad is roughly, is the same age. So yeah, So I was saying to you, if you could give any advice, what would it be?
What advice would I give? Protect your heart, protect yourself, but still have courage to try and mend things up to an extent, and recognize there's two parties. Like, you can do as much as you possibly can. If the other party isn't willing to help, isn't willing to step out in reconciliation, then you need to recognize that and maybe protect yourself. Like, don't do anything that makes you overly vulnerable. Take small steps, I'd say. Like, is it just, if you haven't spoken to your dad for a while, is it just sending a text here just to see how he is and stuff like that? Yeah, that's what I would say. Take small steps to begin with. You don't have to have a fantastic relationship with your father overnight. Just take small steps.
Well, thank you very much, Leonie.
No problem at all. My pleasure.